Hey guys, my guest tonight, Deborah Blake, is going to be talking about cats and magic. We'll be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey everybody, happy Tuesday evening. How's everybody doing? Got the whole week ahead of us, but I mean, can't get any better than this, right? Temperatures are nominal here, finally. Just say I'm in glasses today. I ended up with a nasty black eye, and it was funny because when I was on the air reading Bram Stoker's Dracula yesterday, I couldn't, or the other day, I couldn't figure out why my eye looked so weird. It's just there was something just off about my right eye, and it was really bugging me. And then after I got off the air, I realized I have a black eye from all my little adventures. So, never fall on the doorknob. That's my motto. Anyway, my name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you think you have a paranormal issue going on, we can get to you. However, it may take us a couple days because California is huge. In that case, I do have psychics on staff who can phone you and talk to you about what may or may not be going on in your home or business. And in most cases, if it is paranormal, they can settle the energy down until we get out there. But like I said, it'll take at least 1 to 3 days for us to get out there, but we will get out there. If you guys are watching from Facebook today, and a lot of you are, please feel free to hit that follow button. We're always looking for followers. Also, during the show, chat amongst yourselves, leave me a thumbs up and all that good stuff, because that puts us in what they call, Facebook's computers see that, throws us up in what they call the FYP page, which is the For You page. If you're wondering where that's at, go onto your Facebook profile, start rolling down, and you'll see where all the reels are. And then down is your suggested things, like you might have people in there that they suggest because similar interests or different pages. That is the FYP page, and that's where the more you interact with me, the more we're on the FYP page and send out to more people. Because isn't this what this is about? Is sharing these shows out. So I really appreciate it. Same thing with YouTube. It works pretty much the same way. If you haven't subscribed over there, please be sure to do so if you like what you see today. I have over 1,000 videos sitting over there, all of this show, and they've all been put into categories, so it's easier to find. So if you're into Medium Nancy Matz, you can click on her file and just go to whatever show you want, just like with cryptids and things like that. Works the same way. Hit that like button, chat in the chat room amongst yourselves, all that good stuff. Twitch, everything. All those places work basically the same. TikTok, you have to double tap the screen. Okay. That's all spewed out. That being said, tomorrow I will have all the information for our Patreon page, and there'll be some details on that. I'll probably have a running ad during the show tomorrow so that you guys are able to see that. So I'm real excited about that. Get some support going for this page, for the show and all that. And you know what? I forgot to tell you my name. I'm Charlotte, owner of California Haunts. Okay, on to the show. I have a great guest today. I was never a cat. I was kind of like a fence-sitting cat person. But once I got my feral kittens and they moved in with me and all that, I love cats. I'm just really into cats, almost as much as I love dogs. My guest tonight has written a book about cats and magic, and we're going to talk with her about that. I'm really excited. Let's bring her on, Debbie Blake. Here we go.
Hello.
Good evening. How's it going?
It's going okay. My feline overlords gave me permission to actually come talk to you, so that's good.
That's good. Tell me about you.
Well, let's see. I am the author of, oh, good Lord, what am I up to now? I think my 17th book just came out from Llewellyn. I've sort of lost track. And I also have a tarot book, the Everyday Witch Tarot, and a couple of oracles, including the Everyday Witches Familiars Oracle, which just came out, which people are
Mhm.
having a lot of fun with. I also write fiction, including paranormal romance and urban fantasy, cozy mysteries, contemporary romance. So basically, if it's a writing thing, I probably do it. I live
Awesome.
in an old farmhouse in upstate New York. And my house is pretty much ruled by my 5 cats.
That's awesome. That's okay. That's okay. Do your cats? Let me ask you this: you say it's ruled by 5 cats. How is it ruled by 5 cats?
Well, I mean, if they get fed twice a day, and if
Hmm.
breakfast or dinner are not on the table on time, bad things happen. As soon as I wake up in the morning, they're like right there going, "Get out of bed. We see you're awake. Get out of bed. Come feed us. You haven't gotten to feed us yet. Come on." So yeah,
That's
it's pretty
funny.
much they are the boss of me. Yeah. And then, they've trained me very well. Like I can't leave food out on the counters because I've got one demon child who will get into anything. You would not believe, the stuff that she can. She's magic in like slightly evil ways. She's actually chewing on my hair right now. I don't know why. I think because I'm not paying attention to her. But yeah, they are the boss of me, but on the other hand, I can't imagine my life without them.
That happened to me too. And it's funny because we talked a little earlier before the show, and mine are old feral. I got them as kittens, feral kittens, and like I said, I had a cat years ago, but I never really had a cat. You know what I mean? Never really one on one, and they are different. And I have a female black cat that's younger, and she likes to escape, so I call her Houdini.
Oh
But
dear.
they've all got their own personalities. They get stuff, hanging from the ceiling that I didn't think they would get, and suddenly it's all pierced. So you don't know what cats can
Uh-huh.
do. It's
Yeah, I
crazy.
actually grew up with cats, so I've had cats pretty much my whole life. I think the only time I didn't have a cat was the couple of years I was in college living in a dorm. And
Hmm.
as soon as I could, I got out and got an apartment so I could have a cat. Also, because there's just way too many other people in dorms. And yeah. Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely.
but yeah, I've always been kind of a crazy cat lady. I was a crazy cat lady as a teenager, as a young adult, and how old am I now? I'm 64 now, so I'm like a crone crazy cat lady. Uh,
There you go.
but hey, considering everything that's going on right now, I'm very proud to be a crazy cat lady, and I, will wear that badge, no problem whatsoever.
It's that saying that's been going around Facebook. Instead of idiots, I can talk to my animals. And I mean, that's about what it is too. It's much easier
Well,
to talk.
it is true. And, I've lived alone for a big chunk of my adult life. And
Hmm.
I think I don't know how I would do that if I didn't have cats. I think I'd be
Hmm.
really lonely.
Hmm.
With cats, I'm mostly just like, yes, Your Majesty, what can I get for you now? There's no time to be lonely. But yeah,
No.
they're good company. They make me crazy, but they are good company. And, besides which, I'm a witch. So,
Right.
I mean, it's not required to have a cat. I
Right.
have witchy friends who have dogs, some who have dogs and cats, some that have snakes, it's all sorts of variety. But yes, it is sort of traditional to have a cat. And I will say 3 of my 5 are black, although, that's just because I happen to really like black cats.
I do too, because black has a misnomer on there, about, they're just a different type of cat and they're bad luck and all this, but I haven't had that problem. I adore my 2 black cats. Love them.
No, and all of mine are rescues, and one of the things that happens is, unfortunately, there are way more black cats in
Hmm.
rescues because people don't adopt them because of these silly superstitions and things.
Yes.
So, my most recent um, adoptee, who I really was not intending to get cat number 5.
Hmm.
I had 5 before this batch, and I was like, 4 is good, especially with Diana, who's like 3 cats worth of cat,
Right.
because she's just that much of a handful. And then I was actually I support my local independent rescue organization, um, which is where I got 3 of the 5 cats. I've done some volunteer work for them, and my Cozy Mystery series was actually inspired by them and takes place at a rundown shelter. So I was doing a book signing at they're trying to build a new shelter. They actually just moved into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were doing like raffles, and I, had me come and sign my books and things. And I did not realize when I got there that in the back where the raffles were, there were cats. I was just out in the front signing my books, talking to people, minding my own business. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm done with my signing. I will go back to, this place where the raffle is. And in the back corner, they had a bunch of cats they'd brought for people to meet. And there was this one tiny little black cat who was absolutely terrified. She was just hiding at the back of the cage. And I asked the woman who was, there, it says, on the front that this cat's been at the shelter for 3 years and she's only 4 years old. Is there something wrong with her? And the woman said, no, she came in and she was very friendly, and she's just not done well in the shelter atmosphere, and she got progressively more and more scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, nope, not doing it. Walked away. Happened to be at their old shelter a week later to do an event with some 8th grade students who'd won a contest to do with my book. And thought, well, I'm here. Let me go visit her. And she was so sweet. And she was in a cage because she was having digestive stuff, and they couldn't let her out in the big room with everybody else. And I thought, this poor cat's going to spend the whole rest of her life at this shelter in this cage because she's too scared to, go out and, schmooze the people. So, yeah, she came to live with me. It took about 7 months of having her upstairs and getting used to me. And now she sleeps next to me every night. So
awesome.
Yeah.
You say you're a witch. When did you start getting into that sort of thing?
Well, I was sort of a late bloomer, actually. It wasn't until my mid to late 30s. I was brought up Jewish, and I love my Jewish heritage, but the religion itself didn't do anything for me. That whole, patriarchal male God figure, And, I studied Buddhism for a while, and that was close, but not quite there. Right. And then I had a friend who kept inviting me to come do stuff at her house with people. And I'm like, ugh, people. And then I went, and it turned out I was a witch. Who knew?
Who knew? Very interesting.
Yeah, so that was really a little less than about 30 years ago. And, I've been leading my own coven for 20 years. And yeah, it's, since I now have a career built around writing books about it, I guess I'm a professional witch. I don't know.
Can you clear up some misnomers about witches? Because I know, there's a lot of misnomers about what you do with your covens, because people always look at TV. TV makes everything look so bad all the time.
Yeah. So, and there was a lot of propaganda from the church, going way back to when they moved into Europe and were basically sort of edging out the people who were in power at the time, who were pagans, because that was who was there. So, part of the misunderstandings were purposeful. They were basically, they would look at the village wise woman and herbalist and say, oh, she's a witch. That means she's evil. She works with the devil and blah, blah, blah. And then they'd go out and kill them all, which is a really bad idea. But it turns out, so that's one of the things, that witches work with the devil. The devil is a Christian concept. Witches don't actually believe in the devil, so we're not going to worship him. We're not going to work with him. We think he's made up. Are there, unpleasant entities out there? Sure. Lots of them, but, big, scary devil, that's not, if it's in your belief system, that's absolutely fine, but it's not in ours. And, things like, well, let's put it this way. I have a lot of frogs in my garden pond. None of them used to be people.
Okay. But I know, it's just there's so much misinformation out there. Because I have a friend up in Oregon, Washington area who has a coven, who's involved with a coven, and it's so different from what people think it actually is. What people have
It's
been ingrained to think.
it's sort of crazy to me because for the most part, witches and pagans and Wiccans, who are all sort of related but not exactly the same thing,
Mhm.
and we could spend a whole show talking about that. Um, but we're basically, it's a nature-based religion or a spiritual path. Some people don't even call it a religion.
Mhm.
It usually involves a god and a goddess, just
Mhm.
like nature, male
Mhm.
and female, and sometimes something that's a little bit in between. Um, and it's a very individual path. A lot of people do not belong to covens. A lot of people just basically mind their own business, do their own thing. I have never in my entire life, and I've been around for a while in the witchy community. I have never met an evil witch. I have
Mhm.
never met anyone who spends their life purposely trying to hurt other people. We're too busy trying to fix our own lives.
Yeah.
It's all about becoming our own best self and using this path to do that, to create positive change in our lives and in the world through spells and
Mhm.
worship, and we believe in magic, which
Mhm.
I sort of view it as you know something that's real that science just hasn't been able to quantify yet. I
Mhm.
mean, let's face it, not that long ago, there were a whole lot of things that, if you pointed at it, people would say, oh, that's magic. And now we go, no, that's actually physics.
Mhm.
So yeah, but I mean, are there evil witches? Sure, there's evil everybody. I
Right.
mean, you want to look at any religion, there's a whole lot less evil witches than there are people who profess to be something, that follows a path of love,
Mhm.
but they do not love their neighbor.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. My grandmother was curandera from Mexico, and my mother had a lot of stories, about her chanting and getting together with the other, well, we'll say coven or whatever, her
Mm.
ladies, and doing things like that. She was a midwife, but she did practice white magic. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see the comparisons of what she did and then what you guys are doing, as opposed to today, and how you go about doing
Right.
it.
And there's a lot of, I mean, the thing about modern witchcraft, the witchcraft we
Hmm.
practice today, it has roots in a lot of older, you know, magical and pagan traditions. It
Hmm.
it isn't necessarily an unbroken line from, magic the way it was, in one place to us.
Right.
But
Right.
we tend to take bits and pieces of various cultural things. Some people focus on, one specific culture. I'm what we call an eclectic witch, which
Hmm.
basically means I go, oh, that looks cool, and that would work for that people. I
Right.
might try that. And I do it all with respect for the origins of
Hmm.
the magical traditions. Um, and it all comes together as one sort of greater whole for me. Everybody's
Hmm.
different.
Hmm. Absolutely. Now you've written a book about cats and magic. How do cats figure into magic and what you do as a witch?
I mean, for me,
Hmm.
I had a cat at the time I wrote the book, which is called The Little Book of Cat Magic.
Hmm.
Very simple name. Um, I had a cat named Magic, who was the only. I've had a zillion cats. She was the only one who was an actual familiar.
Hmm.
People have this idea that if witches have cats, all those cats are familiars. And
Hmm.
that's not true. I wish it were. A familiar is basically an animal that helps a witch with their magical work. But they're not like, you know, out fetching, magic wands.
Hmm.
Basically, it's a matter of their energy, and, there are some cats who really have that connection, and my cat Magic did,
Hmm.
and so she sort of inspired me to write this book. Also, people were always asking me, well, how do I get a familiar? What do I do with a familiar? And so, yes, I wrote this book that basically talks about, I mean, first of all, it was just a little fun book to write. I have all sorts of miscellaneous cat related things, like, I talk about cats throughout history, and the way they featured in cultures like, Egypt and India and places like that. And I talk about cat myths and folklore and tales because I just like them. They're fun. And, some of those are magical and some of them are not. And, there's like cool poems about cats or quotes about cats throughout the whole book. And I also talk about specific cat deities, because the thing about witches is we are, for the most part, what you call polytheistic, which means we worship more than one god. And for some people, that means they have a specific god or goddess that they follow. For many of us, it's like, okay, I need to do some work for my cat's health. I'm going to call on a cat, a god or goddess that's associated with cats. And so I have a list of a few of those, and I talk about them. And then I talk about naming cats, which, because, it can be important. And I've got, a spell for discovering your cat's name, because sometimes they do kind of come with their own names. I've sat with, with cats and gone, well, okay, what about, and they'll be like, nope. How about that? Nope. And sometimes you just know. I mean, you have cats, sometimes it's based on their personality. Sometimes it just comes to you. And I think that's because they tell you.
In what ways do you think, and I know you're not, a professional cat person. We all have cats. I've got 3.
I am a professional cat person. What are you talking about?
In what ways do they communicate with you, or us? How can we tell if our cats communicate with us?
I mean, sometimes they're not subtle at all. My cat Ember, when I'm getting their food ready, and it is quite the routine, because I have 5 cats that eat 3 different foods in 5 different rooms. So I have to lay all the food out, get everybody in. Some of them have medicine added to theirs. So it's quite the process. And Ember will walk behind me and smack me on the ankle if I'm not moving fast enough. So she's basically communicating quite clearly that she wishes I would, put her food bowl down right now. Come on, get with it, lady. They also communicate with, vocalization. They different meows mean different things. And if you get to know your cat, you'll figure out, is this a, I want my food meow? Is this a, my sister is picking on me, come save me meow? Or is this just a, I want your attention and I want it right now, and I don't really care what you're doing meow? So a lot of the thing about cat communication is paying attention to what they're doing. And of course, with magical work, if you are in fact doing magic with a cat, paying attention to their behavior will tell you, first of all, are they a familiar or are they not a familiar? I knew that magic was a familiar because every time I did something magical, whether it was standing at my altar and lighting a candle just to send out prayer, or if it was my group coming for practice, she showed up. We actually would laugh because, we meet outside when we can, but it's upstate New York, between the snow, the rain, the mosquitoes. A lot of times we'd have to be in my living room, and we have an altar table, a nice round sort of low table that we would put all of our supplies on. And we would gather in the living room, and Magic would come strolling in. She would walk clockwise around the table, greet everyone, and then either sit under the table or on the couch behind where I was sitting so she could supervise. She was very big on she supervised my writing. She supervised my eating. She supervised my magic, everything I did. When I lost her, it was like, well, crap, I can't do any of these things anymore because I don't know how to do it without supervision. But, we would joke that that's how we knew it was time to start the ritual, because Magic would come in and walk around the circle. And at the end, she would walk around the circle again and stroll out of the room. And we'd go, well, I guess the ritual's over. So she was actually very clear at communicating that she was a familiar. My cats that I have now pretty much do not show interest in my magical work, whether the group is here, whether it's me by myself. Every once in a while, Ember will come up and be like, yeah, I'll come lend you a little energy. She actually is sort of interesting because I also do energy healing work, sort of like Reiki, except it's intuitive and it was just like a gift I got. And she and Diana will take turns coming up and actually sitting on the person that I'm working on and lending their energy for that. So, cats and energy, any kind of energy, they really can tune into it. They're very aware. I always wonder when you see a cat staring at a wall and you don't see anything, do they see something or sense something that I don't? Probably. Hopefully it's not a mouse.
That's true. That's true. I just find it interesting. Like I said, I never was a cat person. I am now. I've learned so much from these cats. And like you say, it's just an instinct thing where you can tell what they're thinking. And whether it's instinct or they're communicating back with me, mentally, but I can tell what they're thinking. If they're disgusted, I can tell. If they're happy, I can tell. If they want a different food, they let me know. They're very vocal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I had to change my cat Koshka's food, and he not only wouldn't eat it, he would paw around the bowl as if he were trying to cover it up with litter. And it was like, not only do I not want this food, I am completely disgusted by this food. He was basically saying it was shit. He's like, yes, if I could bury this, I would. And yeah, guess what? He got different food because I got that message loud and clear. He was not going to have that food.
Yeah, I've had mine where they have dumped over their food.
Oh yeah,
Literally
that's
dumped
always
it over just to go. No, we're not going to eat this garbage. So I mean, their personality plus. When used with magic, because like we talked earlier, black cats are legendary as far as people's minds. That they're bad luck bringers and all this. When you take a cat and do magic with it, how does that work? Or like you talked about your cat coming in at the beginning and maybe towards the end on these things. How does that normally work? Like as far as magic goes with cats, if you're conjuring spells and things like that.
First of all, it doesn't matter what color your cat is.
Okay.
Your cat can be any color, and it doesn't have to be a cat. I know people who have dog familiars. My stepdaughter, who is also a practicing witch, has snakes. Perfectly lovely, harmless snakes. I'm not anti-snake. I'm not a snake person, but she loves her snakes, and they do work with her. The thing about working magic with a cat or any other animal is that you don't get to tell them what to do. You can ask them, you can say, I'm going to do magical work now. Would you come help me? And if they're in the mood, because they're cats and sometimes they're not, if they're in the mood, then they will come and they will sit there with you. And, you occasionally get one like Magic who actually will, walk around the circle or something. Right. But it's less what they do or what you do with them and more about them just sort of being there and lending their energy and, whatever mystical thing it is that cats have, which, you can't really put your finger on it. It's not something that can be quantified, but it is there. And I think one of the reasons why witches have worked with cats so much is because they are mysterious and mystical. Dogs, for the most part, are pretty out there. They're like, hi, I'm a dog. Here you go. I like you. I don't like you. Cats are more like, well, I like you now. In 15 minutes, I might not like you. You're my best friend. Okay, now don't touch me. There is this very sort of mystical aspect to cats, especially some cats. And I think that's why the black cat thing, because black cats do tend to seem more mystical and magical just because they're black. They're also really good at shedding on your light colored stuff.
No kidding.
That's magic too. But yeah, it really is mostly a matter of letting them do what they're going to do anyway. Although I always remind people that if you are going to be doing magical work with a familiar, especially a cat, you want to be very careful about the things you are using when the cat is around. For instance, candles. It is really easy for a cat to get burned. You don't want them to jump up on your altar if, it's a low one and hold their little tail over a flame. Yes, I've had that happen. So you want to be careful with that. You want to be careful with herbs because, witches tend to use a lot of herbs with their magical work. And some herbs are perfectly safe for cats. A lot of them are not.
Right.
And, you just don't want them to get into them. Magic had a thing for sage. I had my sage smudge sticks, could not leave them out on the table when she was around because she would just go chew on them and scatter them all over the floor. She loved them. No idea why. I had to hide them in a cupboard and only take them out right when we were going to start the ritual. My other cats that I have now, they couldn't care less. You could, leave it sitting on the table. But yeah, you do want to be careful, if you're cutting things, anything that, would be sharp. So if you're going to do magical work with cats, keep in mind that you know what you're doing and what the plan is, but the cat definitely does not. Well, maybe does not. And you just want to be cautious. You certainly don't want to use anything that's poisonous around a cat. Although I'm one of those witches, my herbs are pretty much the same herbs I use in my kitchen that I grow in my garden. I don't mess with poisonous stuff because there's so many things that work that aren't poisonous. Why would you?
Absolutely. Plus, there's that saying, and I saw that, well, not saying so much, but the warnings out about salt lamps in cats.
Salt lamps and actually essential oil, what do you call those things? You put the oil in and light a candle or something and it puts it out in the room.
Right.
You have to be very careful because I used to use those. I love essential oils. I can't do perfume oils, but I love essential oils. Some of those can be very harmful. They can actually kill cats. Even what you would consider to be a perfectly harmless essential oil can be too intense for a cat. So, you have to be very careful with any of that kind of stuff. Because for all of their toughness, they are pretty delicate animals.
And you just brought up a memory for me. It's not a cat memory, but it's a dog memory. This is the furthest most bedroom in the house. And I decided to do a cleansing on my house. Got my sage, and got my frankincense and myrrh. Put it in my fireplace because that's midway through the house. And I thought, it'll permeate through the house. No sooner got it lit, maybe 3 or 4 minutes later, I hear a dog go, "Achoo!" from all the way back here. So that, I was like, well, we can't be doing that. The dog's going to have allergy issues. But like you say, they're very sensitive, whether it's a cat or a dog, they're very sensitive.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to be really careful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very sensitive too. I'm a delicate little flower. I'm not good with chemicals or any of those kind of things. But even if I weren't, I am very cautious about anything that I use as far as cleaning materials, all of that stuff, because a lot of the stuff that might be safe for people is not safe for animals. Right. So I use a whole lot of non-toxic, natural, very mild stuff. People don't know, like things like pine sol can kill a cat or a dog if they lick it up off the floor.
Yes.
So, clean, natural, do your magic natural, and always keep in mind that if you are working with or around an animal, cat or otherwise, that they may be sensitive to something that you're not sensitive to, or they could get into trouble. We use string or yarn. We'll tie a piece of yarn around a bag full of charm ingredients or whatever. You don't want to leave those kind of things around either, because your cat will get into them and they can get it wound around their intestines. It's not good. Even if it
Well,
comes out the other end, it's not pleasant for anyone involved.
well, that goes for birds too, because I have had birds in the past as well, and you have to watch what type of bird toys you buy, because if they have a certain dye in there, it could hurt the bird. Or
Oh yeah.
if it's made with rope or yarn, the bird will eat that.
Oh,
Maybe
and there's a lot of stuff that people think are good for birds that
Mhm,
really isn't, because I know people who've had bird familiars too. But yeah, you have to do your research, make sure you know what is safe and what isn't safe, and behave accordingly.
mhm,
Nobody wants to be responsible for a sick or injured animal, whether it's your
mhm,
familiar or not.
mhm,
For one
mhm.
thing, vet bills are expensive. Ask me how I know.
um, when we talk about the familiars and stuff, are these animals that possibly we have met in different form in past lives? Do you think?
I definitely think that's possible,
Mhm,
or we finally moved high up on the scale for them to bother to notice us. Um, and I certainly believe that the connections between us and our animals,
mhm,
and not all animals, I mean, it's not always that intense. My cat Magic and I had this connection that I have not had with other cats. I was
mhm,
very close to her brother too. I adored her brother, and the two of them together were just gangbusters.
mhm,
But there was something about this cat. It did make me wonder. And interestingly enough, she hung around. Well, they both did. She and her brother. I lost them 8 days apart, which was horrible. To
um,
two completely different cancers that I'd been nursing them for months. I knew it was coming. It was rough, but they hung around for months after they
mhm,
passed, especially Magic. She used to sleep by my head. She supervised my sleeping too. Um, and every night for months, I would feel her
mhm,
sleeping by my head. And her brother, who was humongous, he was this big gray thing, and he would sleep right by my feet. And I could feel him jumping on the bed at night. I've lost a lot of cats because I've had a lot of cats and they don't live
mhm,
forever. It has been very rare that I felt the presence afterwards of any of them the way I did with these two cats.
mhm,
And, I think they knew how rough it was. And I immediately got other cats because I was down to one. They were going to kick
mhm,
me out of the Crazy Cat Lady Union. What the heck? No. And again, with the not being able to sleep but it was really funny because my cat Harry Dresden, who is a very sleek little panther black cat, and looks quite a bit like Magic, although he is not a familiar. He's just my boyfriend. Um, but I swear she found him for me.
mhm,
When I was, it was just one of those things. I could just feel her presence when I found him, and when I brought him home, most of the time he would sleep on the bed and sometimes he wouldn't, and I'd be really lonely, and I'd say, Magic, make Harry come in here. 5 minutes later, Harry'd be in there. You
mhm,
tell me that cat spirit did not go fetch him and go, get back on the bed, she's whining
mhm,
about you. So I think our relationship with animals, and particularly the ones we have a magical relationship with,
mhm,
on whatever level that happens, um, I think that link can be very, very strong. And you know, what eventually happened was they sort of faded as I needed them less.
mhm,
And it's been a number of years now, and every once in a while I sort of get the sense that maybe she's still around, but for the most part, I think she feels like I'm okay without her, and she could go off and do her afterlife cat things, whatever they
mhm,
are.
mhm, mhm. Do you find, and talking about doing magic with cats? 'Cause I mean, like I said, cats have a unique personality. So how do cats benefit you as a witch? To use them along with your magic.
Well, it is, I like you said, it's different for every cat. Magic was kind of the boss of me, and
Mm-hmm.
she would sort of direct my magic. She would help me figure out what I needed to do. The cats that I have now who are not really familiars, their energy is helpful, but I'm sort of on my own as far as, directing it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they do all have completely different personalities. I mean, that's one of the things that I love about animals is there's no two alike, just like people. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and whatever that bond is that you have with them, it will affect your magical work because each cat is different.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a cat that is very grounding, and some of them are, that will help you ground when you do your magical work.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a cat that is very excitable, and some of them are, that may lend you a boost of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does depend on the cat and what kind of personality they have, what kind of energy they have, and how you tap into that for your magical work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about grounding, why do you ground? I know why I ground, but yeah.
Well, partially I ground because I tend to be sort of, my brain is just always spinning around in circles, and it's like thoughts over here and thoughts over here, and I do meditation and I do other things like that, but grounding is a really good way to reconnect myself with the earth, with that sort of quieter, more sedate energy, and
Mm-hmm.
it brings me out of my own head.
Mm-hmm.
And cats can absolutely do that, even if they're not magical. If you have a cat sitting on your lap and you're petting that cat, I guarantee you feel more grounded than if that cat were not sitting on your lap.
Right. Right.
Sometimes they ground you so hard you're like, well, I really needed to get up and pee an hour ago, but I can't. Oh well.
I understand that completely. So, take me through a ritual. Where you've had a cat, by your side.
Well, so with magic, when I would do rituals by myself, I mean, obviously, I already told you about how it worked with the group. When
Right.
I would do a ritual by myself, and most of the rituals that I do on my own are relatively simple because I've
Mm-hmm.
been doing this for a very long time. When we did magic as a group, we would, cast the circle, and we would call the quarters,
Mm-hmm.
earth, air, fire, and water, and we would invoke the god and goddess, and do some fairly formal things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when I do a ritual by myself, I'll probably have a candle, again, out of range where the cats can get it. I have an altar that's actually up on a wall because in theory, they can't jump up there. I
Right.
also have so much stuff on there that there's no room for them to jump up on there because
Mm-hmm.
I know they would. So, I would maybe, get all of my whatever I was using, like if I was going to use some crystals and some herbs, I would get my sage, because I like to do that for cleansing ahead of
Mm-hmm.
time. And then magic would just come and she would sit by me. Occasionally she would meow, especially if I was saying a spell out loud. She
Mm-hmm.
would usually meow. And I will say that my cat Ember sometimes does that. And, I think that's just another way that they add their energy to the spell. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're reciting it along with you, or else adding like a quick, blessed be, or, oh, please give her this. She's annoying me,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then, when I finished up the spell, again, the cat would just sort of stroll off like, yep, we're done here now. You're welcome. You may now give me treats.
That's it. Now, like most cat people know, that you don't own the cat owns you.
Oh, that's so true.
And tell me ways that the cats have affected you, in your life.
Well, for one thing, I mean, they are great company.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes annoying company, but they are they are, wonderful to have around because I don't feel lonely. Except on the rare occasion where I turn around and I'm like, wait, didn't I have 5 cats? Where are they? And they're all asleep on the bed or, in their corners or whatever. I mean, right now, as we're speaking, I've got one sitting next to me on the couch, one behind me on the couch, and one on the other couch across the room. Not sure. Oh, and one on the top of the cat tree. I closed the shade partially so that I wouldn't get glare from the window, and she's like peering out underneath the shade because I annoyed her, obviously, by putting the shade down. But they also teach you to live in the moment, I think. Cats, other than plotting to get your food, which they can do that quite far in advance. But in general, cats are very much creatures of the here and now, right this very minute. They're either happy or they're not happy, or they're sleeping or they're chasing their tail. But whatever they're doing, they are fully present in their own lives. And I think that's something that we can learn from them, from dogs, from whatever animals we're with, because they don't, for the most part, spend a lot of time worrying about what some idiot on the internet said. I mean, which is not to say that they don't worry about things. I mean, right. I've seen, my cats, I have one that picks on another one, and, Ember will be looking over her shoulder, waiting to see if Lilibet is coming to get her. So it's not like they aren't aware and don't worry, but for the most part, they are very much present in the moment. And I think that's a thing that as human beings, we've really lost touch with. And, I mean, there's so much going on. There's always some, there's the TV, there's the internet. As an author, I spend a lot of time on my computer or my other computer, and I think sometimes they remind us to focus on where we are and what we're doing. If you're eating, focus on the food. Enjoy the food. If you're lying in the sun, really enjoy lying in the sun. If it's raining, take a nap. Actually, just take a nap. That's pretty much the main lesson from cats. Take a nap, which I do. I take naps. It's very good.
Do you find that your cats are more active at night, which I find all the time? I mean, there's cats that walk in front of my backyard window, and then the poor girls. In fact, you talk about the blinds, and there used to be blinds there, and they went ahead and moved the blinds out of the way so they could see out back to see the other cats. Do you find that the activity increases at night? Because a lot of people say that.
It depends. Certainly they can be active. I have one cat. I've got, of course, many cat toys, many cat toys, and he likes to, in the middle of the night, fetch cat toys from the living room and bring them into my bedroom and drop them by the bed. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and there'll be like 3 or 4 of them, which isn't too bad until I get up in the middle of the night and step on one and think I've stepped on God knows what. Or when he decides he has to tell me he's doing it by yowling when he brings it in, which is always fun. That's like, I'll be hearing. And of course, because he's got his mouth full, it sounds like this. And you think, oh my God, what's wrong? And turn the light on and he's just like, look, Mama, I killed it for you. I brought it. Yay. I do, because I live in the country, I do occasionally get a mouse that comes in the house, and then they get very active, and I have to get out of bed and go try and rescue the mouse and to get it away from the cats. And of course, at that point, nobody gets any rest. Right. But yeah, I mean, it really varies depending on what they're in the mood for. What I find is that as soon as they know I'm awake, and I don't even know how they know, because I'm lying in bed, my eyes are still closed, I haven't done anything, and yet all of a sudden, I've got a bunch of cats going, well, since you're awake, yes, it's 5 a.m. in the morning, but couldn't you just get up and feed us? And then when it is time to get up, they race each other over the bed and, pounce on my head. And yeah, at that point, they're super active because they would like me to get up and feed them.
Yeah, but then what happens is after you get up and feed them, because they've been up all night, and this happens to me all the time, you don't hear a peep out of them for like 6, 7, 8 hours because
Oh
they're
yeah,
passed
no,
out.
they will then go flake out. Again, it sort of varies, but depending on the cats. Diana, who is the one who is the most likely to get into trouble, often sort of shows up and wants to see what I'm doing. And Koshka, who's my fluffy black guy, I swear he's part dog. I mean, I know he's part Maine Coon cat or something like that, but he follows me around the house. He just wants to be where I am. Once I'm there, he'll lie down and go to sleep. But if I go into another room, he'll get up, follow me into the other room, and then lie down and go to sleep there. He'll sleep on the back of my desk chair. He's asleep right next to me right now. He's just, most of the time, he just wants to be right there. The interesting thing is, he doesn't do that when I'm doing magical work, which is how I know he's not a familiar, because the cat that always wants to be where I am with what I'm doing goes and disappears somewhere else. I don't know if the energy makes him feel uncomfortable or what it is, but yep, he's just not interested at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. What do you say to people who might be thinking about getting cats? And let's say they're witches.
Do it. I'm a terrible cat enabler. One of the things that I say, people ask me sometimes how they know if they're, that they want a familiar. They want to go get a cat to be their familiar. And I talk about that in the little book, Cat Magic, because there is no way to know for sure. I mean, you can get a feeling. When I met Magic and her brother, they were tiny kittens, and I had no idea. I went to go get one kitten and ended up with two, and their poor, abused, terrified mother, because crazy cat lady. Best decision I ever made in my whole life, but was not the intention. But what I always tell people, and this is really important, is if you are going to adopt a cat and you are looking for a familiar, bear in mind that whatever cat you bring home with you may or may not turn out to be your familiar, and you better be ready and willing to love that cat with your whole heart, even if they do not turn out to be a familiar. I mean, you can do, like, I have a spell in this book to find a familiar.
Right.
It's not guaranteed to work. No spells are guaranteed to work any more than prayers are guaranteed to work. I mean, there are ways to try and find one that is going to be a familiar. However, once they are in your house, familiar or no, they are your baby. And, you better not care if they're a familiar or not, because it's really up to the cat. You're not going to have any control over it. On the other hand, if you can rescue an animal, and I am a big fan of rescues, whether you're rescuing a feral animal, from your backyard, or, going to a local shelter, or whatever, don't shop to adopt. There are so many animals that need homes, and the shelters cannot keep up with them. Also, spay and neuter your animals. Spay and neuter your animals, people. So there are not many more. But yeah, if you're going to go get a cat, definitely, get a rescue, and, then just be grateful they're in your life and hope that they don't steal your dinner off your plate.
There you go. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm working on another book for Llewellyn right now, which is the Everyday Witches Book of Deities. Because when you've written as many books as I have, I was sort of like, well, what haven't I written about yet?
Right.
I just had Llewellyn's little book of spellcraft come out, which is sort of a fun, cute little book for people who want to learn all about spells and how to do them, why to do them, what not to do. And then, of course, it's got a bunch of spells in it, including one to welcome a new familiar, in case you do happen to get a cat that's a familiar. And I'm actually going to be giving some online witchcraft classes. My first one up is going to be Everyday Witchcraft, which is sort of my general theme, which is all about integrating your spiritual life with your everyday life, because most of us don't have time to spend 2 hours a day being magical.
Right.
Aside, so it's how to sort of walk your talk all the time with whatever you do, which is how I try and live. And then I'm going to be giving my intro to tarot class again, because I'm also a tarot reader. And of course, I have a very popular tarot deck. Bless everybody who bought it. Love you people so much. So yeah, I'm going to be giving some classes, and people can find out about that stuff. I'm everywhere on the internet. You can go find that sort of thing. But yeah, so that's that. And trying to keep up with my garden, because the tomatoes are starting to turn ripe, and all of a sudden I've gone from having no tomatoes to having all the tomatoes. And just trying to live my best life.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I so appreciate it. We'll have to get you on later on down the line this year.
That would be great. Thank you so much for having me.
And how can people find you? Is there a website?
I do have a website, the cleverly named DeborahBlakeAuthor.com, and that's Deborah the Long Biblical Way, DEBORAH, DeborahBlakeAuthor.com. And you can find links there to pretty much, my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or whatever we're calling it this week. I'm on TikTok, although I don't really know what I'm doing, and so I'm sort of flailing around. I have a Patreon. I have an Etsy shop where I sell signed copies of my book and magical kits and all sorts of fun stuff. So they can find links to all that stuff, and they can also find all of my books. So that if they're curious about the Little Book of Cat Magic, they can go to my website, and there'll be a page there that tells you all about it and has some buy links. Should you be crazy enough to want to actually go buy one, please do. Go ahead. Somebody needs to feed my cats. But yeah, that's DeborahBlakeAuthor.com. Links to everything.
Fantastic. All right, Deborah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
You too.
Okay, well, that was fun. I like talking animals. I love talking cats and everything. Tomorrow, our guest at 6:30 p.m. Pacific will be John Olson. We're going to be talking about spooky Utah. So join me for that, 6:30 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We are equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio, just trying to get the word out about our little show. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. And again, I will see you tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. for John Olson. Have a great evening.